welcome to the channel. Today, I will be recapping a mystery, thrilling and action-packed movie titled Hell Hath No Fury, which is based on real-life events. The story revolves around a hunt for hidden Nazi gold, where a group of Germans conceals a significant amount of Hitler's gold in a graveyard. The movie begins in 1941 in France, where a German officer and his French girlfriend, Marie, are driving through a jungle path. Their journey is interrupted when a fallen tree blocks their way. As the driver exits the car to remove the obstacle, he is unexpectedly shot from the surrounding bushes. The car also comes under attack, prompting the German officer to swiftly abandon the vehicle. Marie tries to stop him, but he evades her and flees. The attackers approach Marie and stumble upon a substantial amount of gold in the car, leaving them astonished. Suddenly, a hail of gunfire erupts, and one by one all the attackers are eliminated. Surprisingly, the one firing the shots is revealed to be the German officer himself. He successfully eliminates all the assailants and tries to drive the car, but car didn't started, so they started the journey on foot. The scene then shifts 3 years later, with Germany experiencing defeat in multiple European countries. Following their victory, several European nations begin to harbor hatred towards women associated with the Nazis. These women are subjected to humiliation, including having their hair cut and marks drawn on their foreheads. Marie is among these women, having her hair cut and a red mark drawn on her forehead. Meanwhile, America has entered the war against Germany. In the subsequent scene, four American soldiers, accompanied by an individual whose face is concealed, embark on a mysterious journey. They eventually arrive at an old cemetery where they encounter a caretaker named George. The American sergeant engages in a conversation with George, expressing his desire to locate the grave of a German named von Bruckner. However, George informs them that no German is buried in this graveyard. Now, it is revealed that the person with the concealed face in the car is none other than Marie. Now, Marie is summoned to join them. Now, the American soldiers insist that George vacate the premises, but he defiantly refuses. Consequently, they confine him to a hut, under the vigilant watch of one of the soldiers. Seizing the opportunity, the American sergeant intimidates Marie, cautioning her that they will not leave empty-handed, and any attempt to deceive them will result in her being buried alongside the graves. He then directs his attention to Marie, seeking information on the precise location of von Bruckner's grave. Marie confesses that her recollection is hazy. Unbeknownst to them, von Bruckner is the same officer encountered at the beginning of the movie, and Marie had informed the Americans that gold was buried with him. Accompanied by Marie, the four American soldiers have embarked on this journey in the hopes of locating the hidden treasure. With unwavering determination, the sergeant unties Marie's hands, demanding that she recollect the exact whereabouts of Bruckner's grave. Marie acknowledges the significant changes that have taken place in the cemetery, with the addition of new graves, leading to some confusion. Nevertheless, she points towards a random grave, suggesting it could be the one. The Americans proceed to excavate that particular grave, only to be met with disappointment as they uncover nothing but skeletal remains. Undeterred, Marie motions towards another grave, hinting that it may hold the answers they seek. The Americans begin to dig that grave as well. Meanwhile, an American soldier had been sitting with George. Suddenly, he is ambushed from behind by a man named Clement, who swiftly plunges a knife into him. George, infuriated by this act, reveals to Clement that Marie, his former girlfriend, has come to claim the hidden gold she had concealed 3 years ago. Clement, the man responsible for killing the American soldier, is Marie's ex-boyfriend from France. Despite their concerted efforts to uncover the truth, the second grave proves fruitless. At this crucial juncture, Marie insists that she is exerting her utmost to recollect the correct location and points towards the third grave. Though Jerry, one of the soldiers, suspects Marie may be leading them astray, he reluctantly commences digging the third grave, adhering to the sergeant's orders. On the other side, Marie's ex-boyfriend, Clement, disguises himself in the clothes of the deceased American soldier and is given a gun by George. In reality, Clement's intention is to assist Marie and free her from the Americans' grasp. However, their search for von Bruckner's grave proves fruitless even after digging the third one, leading to Jerry's frustration with Marie. Just then, they notice the American soldier who had been assigned to monitor George approaching them. He halts near a tree, and one of the Americans approaches him for a conversation. Suddenly, he opens fire, shooting the soldier and causing an injury. A fierce exchange of gunfire ensues between the two sides. Amidst the chaos, Marie's spirits lift as she sees Clement appearing to rescue her. In response, the Americans throw a grenade, resulting in George sustaining severe injuries, and intensify their barrage of gunfire. Unexpectedly, Clement seemingly disappears into the ground. He had sought refuge inside the tunnel. Now, the American sergeant suspects that Marie had lured them into a trap, fueling his anger towards her. Subsequently, George, who lost a hand in the explosion, seizes a gun with other and shoots the already wounded American soldier. The sergeant retaliates by shooting George, causing him to meet his demise. The American soldier who was shot also succumbs to his injuries. This triggers Jerry's fury, as he seeks revenge against Marie for the deaths of his comrades. However, the sergeant manages to calm Jerry down and subsequently releases Marie. They both restrain her and initiate a search for Clement, who remains hidden within the tunnel. Despite throwing grenades into the tunnel, Clement manages to survive. Meanwhile, the sergeant, consumed by his greed for gold, continues digging one grave after another. Subsequently, the film transitions into a flashback, and Marie reminisces about the time she spent with Bruckner. Bruckner had confided in her that he had stolen the gold from Hitler, the Chancellor of Berlin, with the intention of converting it into cash after the war. This would enable them to live their lives together. The concept of hiding the gold in a grave originated from Marie herself. Returning to the present, we see Jerry placing his fallen comrades in a vehicle, unwilling to leave them behind. In that moment, Jerry receives an alert on his phone, informing him that a German battalion is advancing towards their location. The narrative then shifts back 2 days earlier in another flashback, where 2 German officers are planning their escape from the war. In 1944, Germany was facing defeat on all fronts, compelling them to flee and seek refuge in Italy. Among these officers is von Bruckner, whose grave the 4 American soldiers had been searching for in response to Marie's request. However, von Bruckner is alive and intends to rendezvous with Marie on his way to Italy. He also desires to retrieve the hidden gold from the cemetery. With the Americans now aware of the approaching Germans, they must swiftly complete their mission and depart. Nevertheless, Marie is unwilling to reveal any information, weaving a web of lies. Subsequently, the sergeant places a helmet on Marie's head and fires a shot at her. He repeats this action twice, each time moving a little further. However, his aim is less accurate during the third attempt. Filled with fear, Marie finally begins to reveal the true story of what occurred 3 years ago. Marie had suggested to von Bruckner the idea of hiding the gold, and they were the ones who went to the cemetery to conceal it. However, Marie had secretly shared this information with someone else as well. Both Marie and von Bruckner proceed towards the cemetery. This is the same scene that opened the film, where Marie's companions, who had attacked her vehicle, are all killed by Bruckner. Subsequently, Marie and Bruckner arrive at the cemetery under the cover of darkness. In reality, Marie devised a plan to visit the cemetery at night with Bruckner, along with her team consisting of George, the cemetery guard, and her ex-boyfriend Clement. Their objective was to confront Bruckner and hide the gold within the cemetery. Unfortunately, most of Marie's team had already been killed during their journey, leaving her uncertain about the fate of the remaining members. Undeterred, Marie decides to hide the gold alone in a grave and confronts Bruckner, shooting him in the face with his own gun. Believing him to be dead, and bury him along with their belongings in the same grave. Unbeknownst to Marie, the bullet only wounded Bruckner, and she mistakenly assumes he is deceased. Upon her return, Marie is captured by the Americans and taken into custody. She spends 3 years in jail before eventually being released. However, few American soldiers got the intel about the gold. They abducted Marie to retrieve it. It is at this point that Marie reveals Bruckner's horrific treatment and murder of her parents, who were buried with the gold. Clement also emerges from the tunnel, and Marie leads the Americans to her parents' grave, where the entirety of the gold is discovered. Strangely, Bruckner's body is nowhere to be found, as Marie had buried him there earlier. This arouses suspicion in Jerry, who believes that Marie is still concealing something. The Americans devise a plan to escape before the Germans arrive, holding Marie captive along with the gold. Suddenly, Clement reappears, providing Marie with an opportunity to escape with the gold. This sparks a fierce firefight between the Americans and Clement. Ultimately, Clement captures Marie, prompting her to confront him for abandoning her 3 years ago. In response, he apologizes and accuses George of sabotaging their original plan. As the gunfire intensifies, Marie attempts to break free, but the Americans apprehend her at gunpoint, instructing her to communicate with Clement. The Americans inform Marie that the Germans are approaching, making it impossible to escape before their arrival. As a result, they propose joining forces against the Germans. Initially perplexed, Clement eventually agrees to cooperate with the Americans due to the dire circumstances. It is now evident that von Bruckner has led his battalion close to the cemetery, and they will arrive within a few minutes. The four of them, armed with all their ammunition, are strategizing their next move and preparing to confront the approaching Germans. As anticipated, gunfire erupts as soon as the Germans enter the cemetery. Grenades explode, resulting casualties among the enemy forces. After a brief exchange of fire, Bruckner spots Marie and shoots her in the leg. He also takes aim at Clement, who falls lifeless to the ground. Meanwhile, Jerry manages to injure a German soldier with a knife, but is left immobilized. In the end, Bruckner successfully shoots Jerry, bringing an end to his life. Following the intense gunfire and a brutal battle, only Sergeant Marie and Bruckner remain standing in the cemetery. Bruckner proposes that they divide the gold among themselves and part ways. This proposition sparks a confrontation among all three of them. However, Marie swiftly shoots and eliminates the American sergeant. Afterward, Marie and Bruckner shoot each other and collapse onto the ground. But Marie, using her knife, ensures Bruckner's demise as well. At that very moment, American planes arrived to carry out an airstrike. In reality, the sergeant had already sent the coordinates for the airstrike before the Germans could reach their location. The American planes initiate the bombing, and the explosions intensify rapidly. Amidst the chaos, Marie miraculously survives. She opens her eyes, rises to her feet, and conceals all the gold in the same grave. She then exits the cemetery. Marie never returns to that cemetery again. She goes to Paris, where she marries an architect and eventually passes away in 1997. This marks the conclusion of the movie. What happened to Hitler's gold? It's a mystery till date. If you enjoyed the explanation, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon.